I still don't know what was standing in that corner. I've thought about it every single night since then. I was alone in the house because my roommate had left. It wasn't loud. It didn't move toward me at all. It just stood there in the dark. That's the part one can't get out of my head. The patience of it. My roommate had left for a family trip. They packed on a Thursday and were gone by evening. I watched the car pull away from the window. I was alone for 5 days, maybe 6. That was fine. I had been alone before. The house felt the same as it always did. Same hum from the refrigerator in the kitchen. Same shadows on the ceiling when cars passed outside. Same quiet that settles in after 10 at night. I remember the first night feeling completely normal. I locked the front door and checked the back. I turned on the lamp and sat on the couch. My roommate sent me a message that first evening. It said they were staying in, feeling tired. I remember thinking that was a strange thing to say. But I put the phone down and forgot about it. I should not have forgotten about it. The house is a small rental on a quiet street. It sits at the edge of the neighborhood. The houses spread out a little more on our end. There is more space between us and the next porch light. The front room has a large window facing the yard. In the day it feels open and easy. At night the glass goes dark and reflective. You can see yourself but nothing past you. I had a routine for those nights alone. I would lock up by 10 and keep the lamp on. I always left the kitchen light on too. It made the place feel less empty somehow. That second night I was sitting with my laptop open. I had tea going and the room smelled like it. The candle on the table had burned almost halfway down. Everything felt settled. Everything felt right. Then I noticed the yard through the front window. There was a shape near the edge of the path. Low and still and darker than the grass around it. I looked at it for maybe 3 seconds. Then I looked back at my screen. I told myself it was the small bush near the fence. We had a bush there. I knew that. I did not go to the window to check. That is not the part that bothers me now. The part that bothers me is what I noticed next. My roommate's bedroom door was open a small crack. I had watched them leave. I had seen the door close. I had heard the latch catch when they pulled it shut. But it was open. Just a little. Just enough. I got up and closed it and went back to the couch. I did not think about it again that night. The third night started the same as the second. I locked up. I made tea. I sat down. The neighborhood was quiet by 9:30. No dogs. No traffic. Just the house and the dark. I was watching something on my laptop around 11. I was not really paying attention to it. My eyes kept going to the front window. Not because I was looking for anything. Just the way your eyes go to dark places at night. The shape was there again near the path. The same low, still shape from the night before. I stared at it longer this time. It did not move. It did not shift at all. I thought about the bush and tried to remember it clearly. I could picture it on the left side of the path. But this shape looked more centered. More upright. I told myself I was misremembering where the bush was. I told myself it was the same thing as last night. Then I heard something from the hallway. A small sound. Like a foot settling on the floor. One soft press and then nothing after it. I turned away from the window and looked at the hall. The door to my roommate's room was closed. The hallway was dark. Everything looked still. I sat there for a long time and just listened. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. The shadows on the wall moved and then went flat again. Nothing else came. No second sound. No movement. I got up and walked slowly to the hallway. I stood at the entrance and looked toward the door. There was nothing there. Just the door and the dark. I put my hand on the door handle and stopped. Something made me not open it. I cannot explain what that something was. I let go of the handle and walked back to the couch. When I glanced at the front window again, I stopped. The shape in the yard was gone. Not moved. Just gone. The path was empty. I looked at every part of the yard I could see. Nothing. Just grass and the edge of the fence. I sat back down and pulled the blanket up. I told myself I had imagined both things. The sound and the shape. Both of them. Imagined. I almost believed it. Around midnight I went to the kitchen for water. I filled the glass and stood at the counter. The kitchen window is on the side of the house. It faces a narrow strip of yard between us and the fence. There is no blind on that window. Never has been. I was standing there and I looked up at the glass. I was in a lit room. Everything inside was visible. Outside was just black. Completely black. I stood very still and I stared at the glass. I could see my own face reflected back clearly. My face and the counter and the cupboards behind me. And just to the right of my reflection, lower down, there was a shape in the glass I could not explain. Not a reflection of anything in the kitchen. Something on the other side of the window. Still. Low. Just below the level of the sill. I turned off the kitchen light without thinking. The room went dark and I stood there in the black. I waited for my eyes to adjust to the dark. I looked at the window and I could see the yard now. The fence. The narrow strip of dead winter grass. Nothing else. Nothing there at all. I stood in the dark kitchen for a long time. I did not turn the light back on for a while. Eventually I walked back to the living room. I sat down and I did not look at the windows again. I told myself I was tired and I was seeing things. I believed that just enough to stay in the house. Sometime after 1 in the morning I fell asleep. I dreamed about nothing. Or I don't remember the dream. What I remember is waking up at 2 a.m. exactly. And the first thing I noticed was the silence. The refrigerator had stopped. The house was completely still. And my roommate's bedroom door was open again. I sat up slowly and looked at the hallway. The door was open about 6 inches this time. Not all the way. Just pushed open partway. The room behind it was completely dark. I could not see anything past the gap. I sat on the couch and I did not move. I kept my eyes on that gap and I listened. The house was so quiet I could hear myself breathing. I picked up my phone from the cushion beside me. The screen was bright in the dark and it hurt my eyes. I opened the messages and went to my roommate's thread. I wanted to check in. I wanted to hear from them. I scrolled up to read the last few messages between us. The most recent one was from that first evening. The night they were supposed to have left for the trip. It said, "Staying in tonight, not feeling great." I stared at that message for a long time. I had read it 3 days ago and moved on quickly. I had assumed staying in meant at the family's house. That they had arrived and were resting for the night. But the message came in at 11:52 in the evening. They had left at 6 p.m. The drive was under 2 hours. They should have been there by 8 at the latest. Staying in tonight. At 11:52 at night. From a number I had no reason to question. I typed, "How is the trip going, everything okay?" I watched the little icon that shows when a message delivers. It delivered. Then it showed as read almost immediately. I held the phone and I waited. No reply came. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Nothing. I put the phone face down on the cushion. I looked at the bedroom door again. It was still open the same 6 inches as before. Still dark inside. Still quiet. I thought about the first night. Locking the front door. Checking the back. Walking through the house alone. I had not checked the bedrooms. I never did. There was no reason to check the bedrooms. My roommate had just left. I had watched the car go. I had stood at the window and watched it leave the street. That is what I had done. That is what I remembered. I remembered watching the car pull away and turn the corner. But I did not remember seeing my roommate get into it. I sat with that thought for a moment. I tried to fill in the memory more carefully. I remembered the car being in the driveway. I remembered the bags being loaded into the trunk. I remembered the car pulling out and driving away. But I had been watching from the window, not the door. Through the glass. With the reflection in the way. I could not place the moment my roommate got in. I kept reaching for it and it wasn't there. The phone buzzed once on the cushion beside me. I turned it over. One new message in the thread. It said, "Don't worry about me." 4 words. Nothing else. I read it twice. My hands were steady but my chest wasn't. Don't worry about me is not something you say from a trip. You say it when you are somewhere close. You say it when you know someone is starting to figure it out. I put the phone down. I looked at the bedroom door. Still open. Still dark. Still quiet. I thought about getting up and closing it. I thought about getting up and walking out the front door. But that wasn't even the part that scared me most. What really scared me came about 10 minutes later. I sat still and I waited and the house stayed quiet. I watched the gap in the doorway and nothing moved. The temperature in the room dropped just slightly. Not dramatically. Just a degree or 2 colder. The kind of cold you feel at the back of your neck. I pulled the blanket tighter and I stayed still. Then I heard a sound from behind the bedroom door. Very soft. Very slow. A weight shifting. Like someone standing up from a bed. Like someone who had been sitting for a long time. One slow creak of the old wooden floor. Then silence again. Perfectly flat silence. I did not breathe for several seconds. I watched the gap in the door. The darkness inside the room stayed still. Nothing came through the gap. Nothing moved. But I could feel something I cannot describe exactly. A kind of weight to the air. A pressure. The way a room feels when it is not actually empty. I looked at my keys on the table by the front door. 6 or 7 steps from the couch. Maybe 8. The front door had a deadbolt and a chain lock. I had locked both before I fell asleep. I tried to remember if I had heard them both catch. I tried to remember locking up and I could picture it. Both locks. I was almost certain. I moved the blanket off my legs slowly and quietly. I set my feet on the floor. I sat forward on the couch. The bedroom door did not move while I did this. The gap stayed the same. 6 inches of dark. I stood up. And the gap changed. Not much. Maybe an inch. Maybe the door pulled in slightly. Like someone on the other side had taken a small step back. Like something aware that I had stood up. I stopped moving. I stood completely still. The door stopped moving. Everything went flat again. We were both just waiting now. I took one step toward the front door. Slow. Just one step. No sound. The bedroom door did not move. I took a second step. Then a third. I kept my eyes on the gap the whole time. 4 steps. 5. I was almost at the table with my keys. I reached for them without looking away from the door. My fingers found the table and I felt for the keys. Cold metal. I had them. I looked down for 1 second to grab them properly. 1 second. Maybe less. When I looked back up, the door was fully open. Not swinging. Not moving. Just open. Wide open and still, as if it had always been that way. The room behind it was dark. I could see the shape of the window on the far wall. A gray rectangle of thin winter light from outside. I could see the edge of the bed. The floor. The closet door. Everything still. Everything exactly where it should be. Except in the corner, just beside the closet. There was something standing there. Not moving. Not making a sound. Just standing in the far corner of that room. In the part of the room where the light from outside didn't reach. I could not see a face. I could see the shape of a person. The shoulders. The outline of a head. Still the way something is still when it is not surprised. Still the way something is still when it has been waiting. I did not scream. I did not run. I stood at the front door with my keys in my hand. And I looked at the shape in the corner. And the shape looked back. My phone buzzed one more time on the couch behind me. I did not look at it. I unlocked the front door. I stepped outside and I pulled the door shut behind me. The cold hit me immediately. The street was empty and still. I walked to my car. I got in. I locked the doors. I sat there until the sky started to go light. I called my roommate's family the next morning. I sat in the car outside the house and called. I asked if the trip had gone well. There was a pause on the other end of the line. A long pause. The kind that means something is wrong. The person I spoke to said my roommate never came. They had expected them Thursday evening. They had waited. They had called the phone several times. No answer. They thought the plans had changed. They had not called me because they did not want to worry me. They assumed I would have mentioned it if something was wrong. I sat in the car and I held the phone against my ear. I looked at the front door of the house. Still closed. Exactly as I had left it. The police went in that afternoon. They checked every room. Every closet. Every space. They found nothing. No one. My roommate's bed had been slept in on one side. Their bags were still packed and sitting on the floor. Their phone was on the bedside table, face down. That last part stayed with me. Their phone was on the bedside table. Face down. But I had received messages from that number. Staying in tonight. Don't worry about me. Both read immediately when I sent my replies. Someone had been holding that phone. Someone in that house, reading my messages in real time. I thought about the first night after my roommate left. How I had come home and locked the front door. How I had checked the back door and the windows. How I had walked through the main rooms and felt safe. I had not opened the bedroom door. Not once in 3 nights. There was no reason to open a door to an empty room. I had just assumed it was empty. I thought about the shape in the yard. The one I had seen near the path on the second night. And then again on the third. Low and still and patient. I had told myself it was a bush. I had looked at it and looked away and believed my own excuse. But I kept coming back to one small thing. The shape in the yard had been there on the second night. The shape in the bedroom corner was there on the fourth. Those are 2 different places. 2 different nights. Which means there were at least 2 of them. Or it means the one outside had found a way in. And if that's true, then it wasn't watching me from the yard. It was watching me leave. Watching to see when the house would be empty again. My roommate has not been found. The police still check in every few weeks. I do not live in the house anymore. But sometimes late at night my phone picks up a new signal. A Wi-Fi network that wasn't there before. The name of the network is just a number. The same number as my old house address. I don't know what that means. I tell myself it's a coincidence every time. I'm pretty good at telling myself things like that. I always have been. That's probably